Regarding Alice in particular, of all of her fiction, this is something that some of us have run into, and in talking to my beautiful authors here, some of them have not. But it certainly is something that I have run into, and many of us have, throughout our knowledge and our interaction with other people about Ayn Rand and her works. The question I want to ask you, if you have had this experience and have any conjectures about it, is why do so many people love her novels, right down to the characters, but dislike vehemently her philosophy? Anybody?
Yeah, when you asked it before, you asked it at dinner, I first thought, well, I don't know what their issue is, and maybe they should have to speak about it. But I did remember something afterwards. Maybe some of you remember it too. It was an article by Nora Ephron in the New York Times, and it was about The Fountainhead 25 years later. And she explained that when she read The Fountainhead, she thought that was a wonderful book, and she was out looking for a red-headed architect, failing that, an architect or a redhead or whatever. And then she said that when she read the book years later, she realized that she had missed the point. Okay, that she'd missed the point. So possibly, you know, some people who, for some, and certainly in her case, she seemed to have developed some kind of affection for the novel, but she missed the point, and then when she got the point, that was the end of that. I think someone wrote a letter to the editor at that time. Maybe you remember it. Do you remember the part about how can anyone miss the point in anything Ayn Rand has written? Or maybe you remember the actual letter that you wrote. Was it that one?
No.
No, it's a different one.
Growing up.
Growing up.
Giving up.
Growing up versus giving up. Okay, well that's another possibility. I think the real issue, if you really wanted to understand it, would be to start with asking the first question. Why do they love the book? And then why, of the people who love the book, do some of them hate the philosophy?
Well, I always found it fascinating that they could miss the philosophy, because it's not as if she embedded it surreptitiously into the novels. I mean, Rourke's speech defending himself in court, point by point.
Blowing up the housing project, you can't miss that.
That's right. John Galt, in the paperback alone, spends 56 pages espousing and explaining the philosophy point by point. So it always sort of mystified me.
But you know, Marcella read The Fountainhead.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
My theory is that people read The Fountainhead and Atlas Shrugged young, and they respond passionately to the heroic elements and the hope and the aspiration. And that later on they hear other people talk about Ayn Rand's philosophy. They may or may not read the book again. The people I've talked to over the course of writing my book don't tend to have read the books many times, but they have heard other people talk about how mean and greedy and harsh Ayn Rand's philosophy is. So I do think it comes secondhand. I think when you gather what Ayn Rand has to say about morality and so on from the books themselves, integrated with the characters and what they represent, it's hard to talk about not liking the philosophy as a whole, I think.
Mimi, can I get out of philosophy, the fire of philosophy, into the frying pan of politics for a moment? Since you've written so extensively about Rand's influence on conservatism and libertarianism, what do you imagine she would think, were she alive today, of the present administration, Congress, the Supreme Court, and the Tea Party movement? She lived through communist Russia, she lived through FDR and Lyndon Johnson. What do you think, briefly, what she would think of Mr. Obama?
Well, I believe there's a line in Atlas Shrugged, isn't it? Brother, you asked for it. Or maybe she would say, I told you so. Because so many of the flaws and as I say in my chapter on The Road to Hell is paved with good intention, quite often our politicians tell us that they're doing things for our good, or they're going to oversee something, or they're going to stimulate the economy, or whatever the benevolent excuse is. And it seems to me that she quite unmasks that, and that was shrugged. So I guess she would really have to say, I told you so, or brother, you asked for it.
Excellent answer.